Welcome to the Retirement Roadmap by SHP Financial, a podcast empowering today's retirees and pre-retirees to make well-informed financial decisions that will help you spend more time living and dreaming than worrying and wondering. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of SHP Financial's Retirement Roadmap podcast. I'll be your host, Matthew Peck, and we certainly hope everyone is enjoying wherever they are doing at this point in time, whether it is driving, walking, or wherever you're enjoying this podcast. We certainly hope that this finds you well and healthy and enjoying it. Do you have kids? How do you speak to them about when they first start out, how to save, how to be smart, how to handle 401ks? It's really fascinating about how just talking to kids about money. Sometimes it's inheritance about your own assets and what they're going to do with it at that point in time. But it's also about when they reach certain ages and they start that first job, how do you pass on those values? How do you have those conversations? What are the most important things that you can tell someone who's just starting out, whether it's anybody or obviously more importantly your kids, as they kind of flee the nest and you want them to be as successful as possible? How do you have those conversations with them? Well, to discuss that today, we are honored to have Mike Guthrie. He has actually been in the field now for 25 years, working at companies such as Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, Northwestern Mutual, all of the above, earning some valuable insight on all of the world of finance and financial planning. Although I must admit, this is his first time on a podcast, so that part will be, I'll try to be nice to him, and we'll make sure that we're not picking on him too much. But without much further ado, Mike, thank you so much, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I feel like, in Talladega Nights, where it's like, what do I do with my hands?
Yeah.
Should I pull them in front of me? But thanks for having me. It's excited to be here, and what a great topic to discuss today.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think specifically because it hits home. I mean, you have kids yourself who are just about to enter the workforce.
Yeah, a couple in college and one in high school, and, a topic that, was very rarely discussed in my house growing up. And I think there's not a ton of education around it for kids in school. So it's a topic I think that they're starting to think about. And certainly when they get into, the workforce, the questions will start to abound. What do I do? I've heard about a 401k. How does that work? Or, what is a budget? How do I pay for things that I used to think were free?
Yes, right.
That now I have to pay for on my own. So I think it's a topic that gets overlooked a little bit, but certainly an important one for sure.
But even before we start to get into some specifics, how is that as a parent? How is that as a dad saying, "Oh my goodness, I think you have a sophomore, right? Is your old?" Okay, so
she's 20.
We're talking. How old? I'm sorry.
20.
20. Okay,
Yep.
So we're talking, let's say, 2 years. In 2 years from now, she will be graduated from college. Now, I know it's bittersweet saying like, "Okay, my daughter's all grown up and all of that stuff."
Yeah.
But how is it in regards to just saying like, "Okay, go make a living"?
Yeah, launch into the world, right? And hopefully, cross your fingers and hope it works. But yeah, I think it's she's studying something that she really loves, and in a biomedical engineering type of program. So obviously initially it's, hey, let's get a job, right? Let's start to look at that, and then okay, what's your salary, and how are we going to budget that? I think the discussion really comes around to somebody who has had summer jobs, and it's usually for a specific reason. Hey, I need some money to take back with me to go to school, and that's really where we spend it. But now, hey, we're starting to be productive members of society, and how do I start to plan for myself? Maybe at some point a family down the road, but how do I get kind of involved in saving, investing, budgeting, all those sort of things. So really just sitting down and having an open conversation more than anything, just being honest with them and telling them about the different options they have and answering any questions.
Okay, well, I think that's the other difficult part too. Yeah. So half of this, and listeners, we are going to get to some of the more specific questions, don't get me wrong. However, and maybe this might just be me. I might be the only parent in the whole wide world that I tell my kids to do something, and apparently my voice they have a tough time hearing me or understanding. Whereas if my brother, like their uncle, tells them something, or another family friend will encourage them, suddenly, they jump to attention and respond. Yeah. So how are we going to overcome the fact of like, whatever, Dad, the whatever dad effect?
My hope is that when they're like adults, that it goes away from, because I feel your pain. I mean, certainly now for sure, parents don't know much, right? They don't know anything until you realize maybe they know everything.
Right.
So I think it's it's hopefully, she'll be a little bit mature, and even, I've got a couple kids behind her too that they'll be willing to have that discussion. I think it's something that I've always kind of floated out there a little bit because they know what I do and the business I'm in, so it's kind of always been a topic. But I think it's just trying to hammer home a couple of key kind of points. Here's what you need to do, and here's what that can help you, down the road. And it's not just a immediate thing. It takes time, and as you build your career, as you build some wealth, one day you wake up, if you had good habits to start with, and you're in a pretty good spot. And I think that's, again, not something that a lot of folks from my generation had those conversations, really, other than just, I think my dad sat me down and said, hey, spend less than you make, save as much as you can, and most importantly, don't do anything stupid. So it's kind of like okay, let's see what happens. It's a little bit certainly more involved than that, but I think it was more of just, you'll figure it out on your own. But I think having an open conversation and just being honest, and here's the impact it can have on you now and down the road, and hopefully they make the right decisions.
Well, okay, so to a certain extent, as a parent in the financial world, it's a little bit easier in our space because our kids know what we do. So along those same lines, it did sound like that you were sort of setting it up a little bit to, whether it was just because of your background or because of it. So it's almost like you were bridging some of the things that were, you were preparing the ground a little bit for these conversations.
Yes, I think so. And it's probably, hopefully more by osmosis than anything, because like you said, it goes in one ear and out the other. But trying to put little nuggets out there that hopefully they pick up on, and then when they go to kind of launch into the world and are on their own, they say to themselves, okay, I remember that. Oh, that's right. We talked a little bit about that, or, we got that book in our stocking that year that I never read, but maybe I should have. And that happened, by the way. 3 kids, a book, I can name it, but just a book about saving money and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know if they read it, but the conversation has been brought up that, hey, at some point, when you're out in the world and you're making your own money, what are the steps to be kind of financially sound, to have a budget, to put some money away, and then again down the road you'll start to reap those rewards.
Well, okay, so let's start to get into some of those more specifics. And
Sure.
and certainly let's also build on the foundation and the knowledge of our own parents, as you mentioned, which is to don't spend as much as you earn, save as much as you can, and don't do anything stupid. Okay. All right, so the fundamentals, are now. I mean, we could probably end the podcast, but let's try to spruce it up a little bit with more modern terms and modern things that your kids, my kids eventually, or anyone else that's listening, they're young. When I say young, I mean I'm talking in their 20s now. What type of issues that they're going to be facing, what type of choices that they're going to have to make at that point, and so that they don't do anything stupid. Now, obviously, at that age, they can make up for their mistakes. But one thing, I think it was, I don't know if it was Benjamin Franklin or Albert Einstein, whoever said that this 8th wonder of the world is compounding interest.
I think it was Einstein.
Okay, I mean, and it truly is. I mean, it's absolutely amazing and I have seen studies where they say, okay, let's say you start saving from 25 to 40 and then stop. And then as compared to somebody that starts from 50 to 60, and that amount of time span, it's a dramatic difference between those two people, only because that person, individual A, started at the early age, and individual B was never able to get caught up because of the power of compounding interest.
Yep.
Okay, so we know that time is on their side. So, Mike, where do we start?
Yeah.
What's the first sort of nugget of wisdom or planning situation that we want our listeners, if they're parents, or our listeners, if they're kids, again, kids, 20 years old, adults, young adults, where do they start?
Yeah, I think with any planning really, or particularly when they're starting to earn their own money that is, actually theirs, and not just summer money, is you got to start talking about a budget, right? So whether they're moving back home, which seems to be a little bit more commonplace than it used to be, or moving out and having a place of their own, whether they're renting or owning, it really comes down to kind of that first thing you said there, spend less than you make. So what can we afford? Where do we need to cut back? And start to look at things. Hey, my rent's X, great, but you haven't eaten anything yet, right? So you need to go buy some food, or you want to spend time with your friends, or pay for your cell phone bill, or whatever that might be. So really determining, what your monthly expenses are. We talk about it with people into retirement. it's all cash flow. What's coming in the door versus what's going out, and then what's left, and then what do you do with what's left? And I think that's probably the cornerstone of any of this, of saving or kind of launching yourself into the world financially, is don't live above your means, because then you're in trouble, right? You get behind the eight ball pretty quickly.
And is that something is it like the chicken and the egg in regards to their salary, where it's like, okay, let's figure out what your job is and then you figure out what your budget would be? Or is it, no, let's really make sure we have a budget, really have that buttoned up, and then, hey, whatever your salary is, then we can start to figure out the difference?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the type of job they have and what they're making, right, initially. Because again, you can budget out for things and suddenly, that's not going to work. Hey, you can't afford that type of rent, or you can't live in that apartment in, the city where you wanted to live. Maybe you need to, find a smaller place somewhere else. So I think it really comes down to more of, okay, what's your initial kind of salary look like? And then, again, let's build kind of reverse engineer from there. So we know where the ground level is, and let's kind of back out from there and see what you can afford.
And then staying on the jobs, I mean, there's a number of different benefits that kids, I can keep on calling them kids, even though, as
they're all
mentioned,
kids, man.
I guess they're all kids, but benefits at the job.
Yeah.
What type of questions should you be talking to your kids about? What type of questions should they be asking about their benefits, and how do you maximize those?
Yeah. So, I think, a pretty high percentage of any sort of, benefit or income comes from benefits of your company. And I think sometimes, all too often, it's just a click the button, sign up, and then move on to what you're doing. But to pay really close attention to those things, because again, there's some really good benefits in there, and not just, your health care and your medical costs taken care of, or, if you sign up for some sort of life insurance or disability insurance, but really, when it comes down to kind of that savings part, and when we start to talk about how do we, think about investing or saving some money, the big questions come around, and fortunately they've been around long enough that most kids, as we say, who are entering that workforce have heard the term 401k, right? They know what that is. So should I sign up for my 401k? And the answer is probably yes, we should, because I think when you start to build out that budget, you say, hey, here's what you're going to make. If we start right off the bat removing some of that out of your paycheck and goes into a kind of a forced or planned savings into a 401k, that you don't really miss it, right? You never had it to begin with. So, hey, my weekly paycheck is, $200. If you take 50 of it and put it into a 401k right off the bat, your weekly paycheck that you condition yourself to, or whatever the amount might be, is 150. So you never really miss that 50. So you're putting it away, right away. So do we have a 401k? Does an employer match it, and try to figure out all those different things? How much should I be putting in? What's the employer match? And then I think, really most importantly is what type of 401k. And, everyone's kind of heard of a 401k, and unfortunately, in our vintage, we're around the same age, maybe a little bit older than you, but the Roth 401k wasn't an option. You had a 401k, which is a great way to save and put money away, and it grows tax deferred. But the power of a Roth IRA, and for those listening who don't know the kind of the difference between the two, the traditional 401k, you put in money with pre-tax dollars and it grows tax deferred, and then when you take it out, you pay taxes on it. The Roth 401k, very much like a Roth IRA, which many of you have probably heard of, you're funding it with after-tax dollars, and it grows tax-free. So when you take it out, you're not paying taxes. I mean, how powerful is that? Put money away for the next 30 years, and it's growing tax-free. I mean, it's pretty impactful for sure.
And just for our listeners, I always love the kind of like the little farm analogy that we have about IRAs versus Roth IRAs, or Roth 401ks versus traditional 401ks, is a question of taxing the seed or taxing the harvest. With IRAs and traditional 401ks, they tax the harvest. You put the seeds in there, i.e. your deposits, that's not getting taxed. But eventually when you pull the money out, when you reap the harvest, the harvest becomes taxable at that point when you start to distribute it. Well, with Roth 401ks or Roth IRAs, they tax the seed. They tax the money and the contributions that are being put in there on a regular basis. However, they do not tax the harvest, what eventually those seeds grow to. So I'll also add, though, so hopefully that helped all of our listeners kind of, again, understand the differences between them. I also love how the fact of a kid situation. Okay, how much are you earning too? Do you need that tax break? Now, most kids will say. I mean, I'd say 99 out of 100 you should be doing the Roth, unless you're highly successful at a very very early age, where your income is in like the 30% tax bracket,
right.
where maybe the tax write-off will be better in that situation. So maybe that's for some of our higher income earners, because that's the thing too, Mike. I mean, some of the things we're talking about too affect everybody.
Right,
I mean,
correct,
this
yeah.
is specifically for people that are just starting off or who have kids that are just starting off, and how to talk to them about it. But I mean, this information you could apply at any time.
Yeah, and again, we talk to people all the time and who are working and they're contributing to a 401k. And the question I ask a lot of times is, hey, do you know if your company has a Roth 401k? Mm-hmm. Because they started contributing to it 10, 15 years ago when they didn't exist. They didn't have one. So do you have one? And if you do, does it make sense to kind of stop contributing to the traditional and switch over to the Roth? Because again, that money is going to grow tax-free, and there's a lot of benefits with that for sure.
And then also just a shift within the 401k, the next question comes, how should they invest those 401k
Sure,
funds?
It's a good kind of dovetail into that, because a lot of times, we get the question, is it the right time? Should I be investing now? The markets are at all-time highs, or the economy's in the trash, and is this the right time to invest? And particularly for young people, for our kids, people our kids' age, who are just getting started out. I mean, it's not about, kind of quote unquote timing the market. Is this the right time to be putting money to work? It's more about time in the market. So you've got, 25, 30, and who knows, by the time our guys are, they're elderly, they could be working 30, 40 years. They could be working well into their 60s, and, who knows what the world will look like at that point. But you're talking about a 25, 30, potentially 40-year time horizon. And no matter what chart you look at, in the history of returns, who knows what everything does 1 year? You could have up or down, 3 years, 5 years, but every 10-year chunk, the market's positive, and certainly every 40-year chunk, the market's higher. So again, having the runway, so to speak, to put money away now and let it grow over time, you wake up as you're approaching retirement. You've been systematically putting money in. You're putting more and more in each year because you're hopefully earning more. That kind of pile that you've saved up, or the nest egg, is going to be exponentially higher just because you're in it longer than somebody who started much later on in life.
So for sure. So no matter what happens, for all of our listeners, and for their kids for that matter, it's not necessarily trying to time the market. As Mike was saying, it's time in the market. However, the kids will come to us with questions, and clients too. They'll say, okay, how should my 401k be invested? Not just the timing of it, and should I be contributing or not contributing and so forth, but what type of options do 401ks have, and how do you walk through kids on what they should invest with if you don't have a financial background like we do?
I mean, most 401ks, whether it's traditional or a Roth, have the kind of the same type of investment vehicles, and usually that's in the form of a mutual fund or an exchange traded fund. So diversified, type of portfolios, again, mutual funds, ETFs. And in some cases they have what are called target date funds. So, hey, I think I'm going to retire in 30 years, so that 2055, potentially 2054, whatever that 30-year time horizon, I'm not doing the math right, says I'm going to retire at that point. And the mutual fund is designed to invest, as you're accumulating that money over time, and as you get close to retirement, it theoretically it should start to dial back the risk. Mm-hmm. Again, that kind of broad spectrum of type of vehicles that you can look at in a 401k. Again, typically it's a mutual fund, it's an ETF, and there are some that you can look at that will be kind of designed specifically kind of age-based or target date.
Well, that's the thing. I love that whole that statement of KISS, keep it simple, stupid, where unless you really have this massive background and you want to do all the research on the funds and the mutual fund and all the options that the company is offering, the target date funds I'm not a huge fan of, because I'm someone that does know those funds, right. And obviously we spend that time in it. But it's a great sort of starter fund for people of that age, where their target date would probably be 2070. I don't even know, right? I mean, if you think about it, exactly, right? I mean, flying cars, I guess, at that point. Right. But I guess I can make Back to the Future 2 references.
I was thinking a hovering skateboard.
Okay,
maybe
our vintage gets that.
I get it,
But target date funds are a great option, I think, for kids that don't necessarily want to really do all the research on it, and it's better, and that's better than nothing. nothing.
Yeah.
No matter what happens.
And I think, we talk to a lot with clients who are investing in 401k, particularly younger folks, that initially a target date fund makes a ton of sense because you don't have to think too much about it. You just put money in and it grows. And then once you get maybe to a point of some critical mass where you have some money saved up, maybe $10,000, $15,000, whatever that amount might be, that you start to look at what the options are and potentially be able to capture better return than just in a target date. If you had a textbook and you pulled it off the shelf and you flip to the page around risk and where should I be invested, and you just looked at the chart and age and time, most young people, we would recommend that you should be aggressive because you've got that time. So why not, swing for the fences isn't maybe the right terminology, but why not try to get as much return as you can, because you can stomach or weather a downturn in a more aggressive type of portfolio than if you're retiring in a couple of years. So be more aggressive because you've got more time for it to grow. And in the aggressive kind of growthy spots, you've got an opportunity to capture more return.
No, absolutely. And I think too that's just important too, because I always love pointing out that if you're in your 20s and 30s and you have a job, obviously the job and income is crucial for all of these planning sort of fundamentals, which we haven't even got to the emergency funds, but I think that's certainly a good thing to cover quickly. It's just the fact that, hey, you're making, so with the market's going down, you should love that. And let's say you did take an aggressive posture, like you're just mentioning, Mike, and you're in your 20s and 30s, and or let's say if you're the parent and your 20 and your 30-year-old is coming to you kind of freaked out because where the market is, because of this economic event or this black swan event or whatever that may be. That is a wonderful opportunity for people in their 20s and 30s to make sure those contributions keep on pumping into there, because now you're buying the market at a discount. Yeah. So it's not it's like aggressive. It helps you in both situations, but over time, obviously it ends up to the right. But now you're buying low in these market events as long as you have the income during it.
Yeah, we always use the analogy of buying things on sale. I mean, my kids now, if it's my money, it doesn't matter if it's on sale. I decide that's the shirt I want or the pair of sneakers I want. But when it's their own money, certainly they look, kind of do a little bit more bargain shopping, look for things on sale. And when the market's down, I mean, if you needed that money in the day that it's down, I mean, you feel the pain. But if you don't need it for the next 30 years, why wouldn't you take the opportunity to purchase something on sale? And that's really what a down day or a down year or a down couple of years, particularly for somebody who's 22, I mean, that's just, things are on sale.
Well, not that too, and this is just a quick little digression only because I was reading an article where they did point out, especially when it comes to stocks and the historical rate of return on stocks and whatnot. Now, the hypothesis is a bit, it's a bit too risky for my own taste, but it was just interesting because they were comparing why we allow kids to leverage, to go for this mortgage and for a real estate, which, sort of it earns you, let's say on average 3 or 4% per year of growth throughout your time. But we don't necessarily encourage them to leverage to buy into more stocks, which might have a 6, 7, 8% rate of return at that point. Now, that's a bit obviously a bit too risky for our blood, not to mention for this podcast. It's a whole topic to itself. Yeah. But it just points out the power of equity returns over time, taking advantage of that compounding interest that we're talking about. And just making sure that we kind of, because we hold hands for our clients during difficult times. And so if there's any parents listening for their kids, just really mention that idea that, hey, the stocks are on sale. This is a great thing. Don't even worry about it in your 20s and 30s. Keep on pumping money into that because it really does make a difference over time. And I think that's the other part too, Mike, I was going to say too, is like, sometimes I think, and now I'm throwing our producer, Evan, who's in his 20s, so he can under the bus a little bit, but I think when they see the Zuckerbergs and when they see these very young influencers on YouTube, whatever that is, they're making millions and they're in their 20s, and it's like, oh, I wish I could get rich quick. Right. And it's like, okay, hey, there's no getting rich quick. There is getting rich, though.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? It's not quick. That's all. You got to take the quick out of that statement. Yep. But you can get rich if you fall over time, I should say, following these types of fundamental ideas and fundamental rules of sort of taking advantage of 401ks, budgeting and whatnot. Yep. So let me quickly review. So we're talking about making sure that people put money in the market, and it's time in the market, not timing the market. Again, a great law to sort of pass on to the next generation. The importance of power of 401ks, advice, whether it's a Roth 401k or traditional, but certainly taking advantage of Roth 401k is something that we want people to explore. Making sure that if they are invested, target date funds are a nice, quick and dirty way of getting it in there. If not, just sort of, as you mentioned, if it hits critical mass, then maybe you want to sort of slice and dice a little bit. What other areas do you think are good sort of, not parting moments, but more so, what else didn't we cover that we hoped we would?
I think one little kind of nice way that potentially, as a parent, you could jumpstart your kids' savings is if they have a 529, and if there's anything left over, and I say that with a smile on my face because there might be some people listening to this leftover money in the 529 plan, but if there is money left over in the 529 plan, whether they completed school or they're not doing grad school, and you've got some money left in there, there is the ability to convert money from a 529 plan into a Roth in your child's name. Now, there are some restrictions around that. I think the lifetime maximum you can do is, I think, about $35,000. And you can only convert what would be the regular contribution into a Roth IRA, which is $6,500 right now. So you can convert that amount, over time and kind of jumpstart them if there is that money left over potentially in a 529. That's a new rule that just came out, I think, with the Secure Act 2.0. So it's actually very new in the last 12 months or so, 12 to 18 months. Again, where you could potentially jumpstart your kids down that road and have a really easy conversation. Hey, we've had this money saved up for school. Maybe you got a scholarship, or you didn't go to one of those super expensive schools, or something left over. So let's talk about what we can do with this. We convert it, put it into a Roth. We do a little investing. You've got your 401k going, and here's kind of how those things can work. So there are a lot of ways to kind of open that door for a conversation that I think. Unfortunately, and we mentioned before, because we're in this business, it's a little easier of a conversation to have. But if you're not, and you've kind of pushed off that conversation, it's definitely worth at least raising. Hey, what questions do you have as you're moving on from college student or whatever you're doing, trade school, wherever you're going into kind of the working world and how to save and invest and budget.
Well, and let me ask that too. I mean, just how to frame the conversation. I mean, we're all sort of uptight New Englanders at times, and talking about money is like sometimes like talking about politics and it's religion or whatever. It's sort of like a third rail. But obviously this is kids and this is family. So is it something where you hope that it comes up and then, that sort of it comes ground up from the kids, and then you say, hey, this is a great time to talk about it? Or do you advocate saying, okay, let's sort of set a time, at a certain point once they graduate from college? I guess, what type of experience or any thoughts that you have there?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the answer is it depends what type of relationship you have with your kid. I'm of the belief that organically coming from them to ask, it's probably not going to happen, right? It's maybe, hey, Dad, I've got my new job or whatever I'm starting at, I've got this benefits package. What should I do? Maybe, but I think setting the stage and having the honest conversation is, hey, here's what this could mean. You've worked very hard. You're going to work. You're going to start earning money. You need to save for the future, and just having an open, honest conversation. And I don't think it's one that your kids will roll their eyes at or be shy about, particularly when they've moved on from the lifeguarding job over the summer to they're potentially a career path where they're going to start earning real money that they have to live on and create income and take care of themselves and potentially a family at some point too. So get it out in the open, start talking about it, and see where it goes.
Excellent. So hopefully that was very helpful, especially on that part about framing it. So what we like to wrap up though is with, all right, let's go to more fun stuff, Mike. So about a year in here with SHP, although 25 years in the industry, so that's certainly a long time, a long
Thanks,
time.
Yeah,
just in case you want to make just very long.
Long.
But okay, so what happens after you clock out of work? Are we reading? Are we watching TV? Are we watching movies? What are we doing with our free time? When work is done?
It's funny. You start to put those years, on the odometer, and our kids are getting to a point where, my wife and I, Laurie, we start to think about, hey, what does this look like when they're out in the world and doing their thing? So as a lot of people have done, we went and played a little pickup this Saturday.
Yeah. Okay.
Sunday, there's a new place out.
You
by
are
us.
old.
I know, right? I know, right? So that's a thing. I haven't golfed, and as you can imagine, it takes a lot of time when you've got kids who are involved in everything. So trying to get back into that. I love to get to the beach, in the summer and down to the Cape and those sort of things. Our son's down in South Carolina at school, so traveling down that way and getting into SEC football has been kind of an eye-opening experience for me too. So lots of things going on. We like to have fun as a family and do a lot of things together. So
that's great.
Wide-ranging interests.
That's fantastic, Mike.
Yeah.
And thanks so much, because I think specifically as a parent of college kids, and besides obviously your long and history and knowledge and expertise in this area, of course, too, but specifically having the kids that are just about, that are in college, that are going to be out on their own soon. And of course, for all of our listeners, I mean, every kid's situation is a little bit different. The idea that some move home is not the end of the world. And I think there's a lot of other factors too, like health insurance you can cover until 26, and there's a lot of others elements at work here, to say the least. But being able to talk to your kids about maximizing their earnings, maximizing their savings, making sure that they're budgeting, making sure that they're not making easy mistakes or mistakes that are easily avoided, I think is so crucial, because eventually, and maybe we'll have it come back out here when you have the inheritance conversation too, to say, okay, for all of our clients, this is more for the parents. If they have all done well, and if the planning that SHP or whomever you use for planning has held up, well, there might be an inheritance. So talking about money, whether they're earning it themselves or whether it's inheritance, we need to overcome that whole idea of the third rail, because there are so many mistakes out there that are just so easily avoided that we're not doing our job, frankly, as financial advisors, to not be able to tell people or to coach people to have these conversations with their kids, because it can be generational. You can really make sure that we're building year after year, generation after generation. I mean, we might not be the Kennedys, the Rockefellers, or whatever that may be. However, if we're avoiding these easy mistakes, or avoiding mistakes that are easily made, and really making sure that people are maximizing their income, maximizing the savings, maximizing their budgeting, or whatever that may be, then we're truly making a difference for us, for our kids, their kids, so forth and so on. So I certainly hope, thank you again, Mike, I should say, thank you so much for joining us. Certainly hope everyone enjoyed this session, and certainly stay tuned for next time, and certainly hope everyone is staying well.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Roadmap podcast by SHP Financial. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button so future episodes are automatically downloaded directly to your device. And if you've liked what you heard, please share the show. Create your own little ripples so we can help even more people with their retirement goals. If you want access to all past interviews, including notes, resources, and exclusive content from SHP Financial, visit shpfinancial.com/podcast. Thanks again for joining us on the Retirement Roadmap podcast. And for all the attorneys out there, and disclaimers and disclosures, I'm just going to put on my super serious voice and add our own. No statements made during the Retirement Roadmap podcast shall constitute tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult your own legal or tax professional on any such matters. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk, and unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Our investment advisory services are offered through SHP Wealth Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance sales are offered through SHP Financial, LLC. Our advisors and insurance reps may offer clients advice and/or products from each entity. No client is under any obligation to purchase any insurance product.